The Silverado was still smoking when he saw it. Not the lazy kind of smoke that comes from an overheated engine on a long desert highway, but the thick chemical black that meant fuel lines had been cut and something had been set deliberately on fire. The truck sat in the gravel lot outside the cantina like a gutted animal, all four tires slashed, windows shattered into pebbles of safety glass that glittered in the late afternoon sun. The hood was peppered with bullet holes, tight groupings that told him whoever did this knew how to shoot. They'd wanted the engine block dead, and they'd made sure of it. He stood there for a long moment, boots planted in the dust, feeling the heat radiate off the ruined chassis. The desert air was already brutal, pushing 110 degrees, and the burning rubber smell made it worse. His hands hung loose at his sides, not clenched, not reaching for anything yet. Just still. The kind of still that comes before a storm. Behind him, the cantina door creaked open. He didn't turn. Footsteps shuffled in the gravel, hesitant, and then a voice spoke in broken English with a heavy Sonoran accent. "Senor, they say you leave now. They say if you still here when sun goes down, they come back." He turned his head just enough to see the old man in the doorway, apron stained with years of kitchen grease, eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from living too close to the cartels for too long. The man's hands were shaking. "How many?" he asked. His voice was flat, no inflection, like he was asking about the weather. 8, maybe 10. They have trucks, big guns. They say this is their territory now, and gringos don't tell them what to do anymore. He looked back at the Silverado. It had been a good truck, reliable. He'd driven it from Laredo to Tucson and back more times than he could count, hauling supplies for the independent security contractors who still worked the borderlands. Guys who didn't ask questions, who paid in cash, who understood that some problems couldn't be solved with paperwork and bureaucracy. The truck had never let him down. Now it was scrap metal. "They leave a name?" he asked. The old man hesitated, then whispered it like a curse. "Los Espectros. The ghosts. They run this stretch now. The federales, they don't come here no more." Los Espectros, he'd heard the name before. A breakaway cell from one of the bigger cartels, younger guys who thought brutality and social media videos made them untouchable. They'd been pushing north, taking over smuggling routes, killing anyone who got in their way. Border Patrol had a file on them 6 inches thick, but files didn't mean much when the group moved like smoke and disappeared into the mountains before anyone could respond. He took a slow breath, tasting the burnt rubber and hot sand. His mind was already working through the tactical picture. If they'd come in the daytime, bold enough to destroy a vehicle in broad daylight, that meant they felt secure here. They had spotters, probably locals on payroll. They knew he was alone. They knew he didn't have backup, and they were coming back. The old man shuffled closer, lowering his voice even more. "Senor, please, I have family. If you stay, they will burn my place too. Just go. Walk to the highway, catch a ride. Forget the truck." He turned fully now, looking the old man in the eye. The fear there was real, and he didn't blame him for it. This wasn't the man's fight, but walking away wasn't an option either. Not because of pride, not because of the truck, but because of what it meant if he did. If Los Espectros could do this without consequence, they'd do it again. To someone else, somewhere else. The cancer would spread. "I'll handle it," he said quietly. The old man's face went pale. "You can't fight them. Not alone." He didn't answer. He just walked past the old man, back toward the cantina's entrance, and stepped inside. The interior was dim and cool, a relief from the heat outside. A few locals sat at tables near the back, nursing beers and pretending not to watch him. He moved to the bar, where a younger man, probably the old man's son, stood frozen with a rag in his hand. "You got a phone I can use?" he asked. The younger man pointed to a rotary phone on the wall, ancient and probably the only landline for miles. He picked up the receiver, dialed a number from memory, and waited. It rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. "Yeah, it's me," he said. "I need an extraction, but not yet. Give me 6 hours." There was a pause on the other end, then a low chuckle. "What kind of mess did you step in this time?" "The kind that needs cleaning. I'll call when it's done." He hung up before the man could argue, then turned back to the bar. "You got a back room? Somewhere I can see the front lot?" The younger man nodded quickly and led him through a narrow hallway to a storage room stacked with crates of beer and liquor. There was a small window, grimy but functional, that looked out over the gravel lot and the road beyond. He could see the Silverado from here, still smoking faintly. He could also see the dust trails in the distance, vehicles moving fast on the dirt roads that crisscrossed the desert. They were coming. He checked his watch. 3 hours until sunset. That's when they'd make their move, when the heat started to break and the shadows grew long. They'd come in loud, expecting to find him cowering or gone, and they'd want to make an example of the place for letting him stay. But he wouldn't be cowering, and he wouldn't be gone. He patted his waistband, feeling the compact weight of the Glock 19 holstered there. 15 rounds in the mag, 1 in the chamber. Not enough for 10 men, not even close, but it was a start. He scanned the storage room, taking inventory. Bottles of liquor, most of them glass. Rags. A rusted toolbox in the corner. He opened it and found what he needed. A roll of duct tape, a box cutter, and a half-empty container of lighter fluid. The younger man appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" "Improvising," he said, pulling 3 bottles of cheap tequila from a crate. He unscrewed the caps, stuffed rags into the necks, and taped them tight. The smell of alcohol filled the small room. He set the bottles on the windowsill, then looked back at the younger man. "You and your father need to leave, right now. Take anyone else here and get out. Don't come back until morning." The younger man opened his mouth to protest, but something in his expression must have stopped him. He nodded once, then hurried back into the main room. Within minutes, the cantina was empty except for him. He heard the sound of an old pickup truck starting out back, then fading into the distance. Good. No collateral damage. He returned to the window and waited. The sun was a molten disk on the horizon now, turning the desert into shades of orange and blood red. The dust trails were closer, resolving into shapes. 3 trucks, all of them lifted, all of them bristling with men in the beds. He counted heads. 9 visible, probably more inside the cabs. They were armed with AR pattern rifles, maybe AKs, hard to tell at this distance. One of them had a machete strapped to his back, glinting in the dying light. They pulled into the lot fast, engines roaring, and skidded to a stop in a loose semicircle around the ruined Silverado. Doors opened and men jumped out, laughing and shouting to each other in Spanish. They were young, most of them, late 20s at best. They wore tactical vests over street clothes, bandanas over their faces, the uniform of cartel foot soldiers who thought they were invincible. One of them, taller than the rest with a shaved head and a scar running down his cheek, walked up to the Silverado and kicked the front bumper. He said something that made the others laugh, then pulled a pistol and fired 3 rounds into what was left of the windshield. The sound echoed across the empty lot. Scarface turned toward the cantina, raised his voice. "Hey, gringo, you still in there? You see what we did to your truck? That's what happens when you don't listen." The others laughed again, emboldened. One of them pulled out a phone and started recording. Scarface posed for the camera, flexing with the pistol, playing to an audience that wasn't even there. He watched from the window, his expression unchanging. Amateurs. They were so focused on the show, on looking tough for the camera, that they'd forgotten basic tactics. No perimeter security. No overwatch. They'd parked the trucks in a cluster, blocking each other's lines of fire. And they were standing in the open, silhouetted against the sunset. He picked up the first Molotov cocktail, flicked the lighter, and held the flame to the rag. It caught instantly, a bright flare of orange. He didn't hesitate. He opened the window, cocked his arm back, and threw. The bottle arced through the air, spinning end over end, and smashed into the hood of the nearest truck. Glass shattered, liquid fire spread, and within seconds the engine compartment was engulfed. The men shouted in alarm, scattering, and that's when he lit the second bottle and threw it at the next truck. Another explosion of flame, another truck disabled. He lit the third bottle and aimed for the cluster of men. It landed at their feet, splashing fire across the gravel and forcing them to dive for cover. Chaos erupted. They were shouting, trying to figure out where the attack was coming from, and he used that moment to move. He slipped out of the storage room, through the cantina, and out the back door. The desert stretched behind the building, open and empty, but he wasn't running. He circled around the side, staying low, using the building for cover. The men were still focused on the front, on the burning trucks, and he came up on their flank unnoticed. Scarface was yelling orders now, trying to rally his men, and 2 of them were running toward the cantina entrance with rifles raised. He let them get close, then stepped out from the corner and fired twice. The Glock barked, muzzle flash bright in the growing darkness. The first man went down hard, a double tap to the chest. The second man spun toward him, but he was faster. One shot to the throat, and the man dropped, gurgling. Now they knew where he was. Rounds started snapping past him, punching into the adobe wall, and he dropped into a crouch and moved. He fired as he went, suppressing, forcing them to take cover. The Glock's slide locked back, empty. He ejected the mag, slapped in a fresh one from his belt, and kept moving. One of them broke cover, trying to flank him, and he caught the motion in his peripheral vision. He pivoted, brought the Glock up, and fired 3 times. Center mass. The man crumpled, but there were still too many. He counted 5 left, maybe 6, and they were spreading out now, using the trucks for cover, getting smarter. Scarface was shouting again, directing them, and he realized the man was ex-military. The way he moved, the way he controlled the chaos, it wasn't amateur hour anymore. He needed to even the odds. He sprinted toward the burning truck, feeling the heat wash over him, and grabbed a rifle from one of the downed men. An AK-47, beat to hell, but functional. He checked the mag, half full. Better than nothing. He slung the Glock and brought the AK up, flipping the selector to semi-auto. Scarface saw him and opened fire, full auto, and he dove behind the Silverado's carcass. Rounds hammered into the metal, punching through what was left of the doors. He waited for the lull, then popped up and returned fire. The AK bucked in his hands, the report deafening, and he saw Scarface stagger back, hit in the shoulder. But the man didn't go down. He retreated behind one of the intact trucks, clutching his arm, still barking orders. The desert was fully dark now, the only light coming from the burning vehicles. Shadows danced and flickered, making it hard to track movement. He used that, ghosting between cover points, firing when he had a target, conserving ammo. Another man went down, then another. 3 left, including Scarface. He could hear them regrouping, their voices tense and scared now. They'd come here expecting an easy kill, a message to send, and instead they'd walked into a meat grinder. He let them stew in that fear for a moment, then called out in a voice that cut through the night. "You came here to make a point. Consider it made. Leave now and you live." Silence. Then Scarface's voice, strained but defiant. "You think you won, gringo? You just killed yourself. We'll burn this whole desert to find you." He didn't answer. He just moved, circling wide, using the darkness. He found a position with a clear sightline to the truck, where Scarface was hiding, and settled in, waiting. One of the remaining men broke first, panic overtaking discipline. He ran for the road, rifle abandoned, just running. He let him go. The man wasn't a threat anymore. That left 2. Scarface and one other, both behind the truck. He could hear them arguing in Spanish, the other man wanting to retreat, Scarface refusing. Pride was going to get them killed. He aimed at the truck's fuel tank and fired 3 rounds. The AK roared, sparks flew, and then the tank ruptured. Fuel poured out, pooling in the gravel, and he fired 1 more round into the puddle. The explosion was smaller than Hollywood would make it, but it was enough. Flames roared up, engulfing the truck, and the 2 men stumbled out, coughing, disoriented. Scarface still had his pistol, still trying to fight, but his movements were slow, clumsy. He stepped out of the shadows, the AK trained on them. "It's over." The other man dropped his weapon immediately, hands up, but Scarface raised his pistol. Stupid. Brave, maybe, but stupid. He fired once. The round caught Scarface in the center of the chest, and the man fell backward into the dirt, pistol clattering away. The last man stood there, trembling, hands still raised. He was younger than the others, barely 20, tears streaming down his face. "Go," he said quietly. "Tell your bosses what happened here. Tell them to stay out of my territory." The young man didn't need to be told twice. He ran, disappearing into the darkness. He stood there for a long moment, surrounded by fire and bodies, the AK still warm in his hands. Then he dropped the rifle and walked back toward the cantina. His sat phone was in his jacket pocket, still where he'd left it. He dialed the extraction number. "It's done," he said when the line connected. "I'll be at the highway marker in 20. Copy that, we'll be there." He hung up and looked back at the burning wreckage one last time. The Silverado was gone, but it was just metal. Just a thing. He'd get another one. The desert had a way of swallowing secrets, and by morning the only evidence of what happened here would be scorched earth, and questions no one would answer. He started walking toward the highway, boots crunching in the gravel. The night was quiet again, the kind of quiet that comes after the storm passes. Somewhere out there, Los Espectros would be regrouping, licking their wounds, trying to figure out what went wrong. Let them wonder. He kept walking. The highway was 2 miles out, and he had all night. The stars were bright overhead, the desert cool now, and for the first time in hours, he allowed himself a faint smile. They'd asked how he reacts when someone destroys his truck.